And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very excited to have back on Ron Perlman, award-winning actor. You know him, Hellboy, FX's Sons of Anarchy. He was one of the stars of Guillermo del Toro's animated feature Pinocchio, and he's a million strong on Instagram. Ron, it is Hellboy for Halloween. I'm so happy to have you here. It's Halloween, and you were Hellboy, so it's good to have you.
Actually, it's October 31st. It is officially a Halloween. Happy Halloween, teen baby.
It is Halloween, baby. Look, let me. What would Hellboy? Let's start with some lighter stuff. If Hellboy were going to talk to me about Trump, how does Hellboy see Trump?
Well, Hellboy is here to protect and serve, like most law enforcement people. And I mean, um, we put the law in rule of law, baby. So we love having an open society that is filled with joy and creativity and all kinds of colors and textures and ideas, and even if some of them are don't completely conform to our own, but that's our way of life, man.
Right.
And um, the rule of law is what keeps us, reminds us that we need to live by the golden rule: love thy neighbor, and I am my brother's keeper. And
Mhm.
those things are rooted in empathy and rooted in generosity and rooted in self-sacrifice, which comes with it's one of the precepts and one of the responsibilities of living in a democracy where we rule ourselves. We have to be willing to put aside sometimes our own complete, subjective needs. Like, is milk too expensive? Yeah, maybe it is. But what are
Right.
you willing to trade for that? I mean, this is our way of life. We don't we don't coddle fascists. We obliterate them. We always have. Starting with the Englishman 250 years ago who thought he could tax us without representation. And so we've been a nation that has fought our way to the incredible articulated um, um, liberty, pursuit of happiness, etc., that was laid out by our founders. And this election is the first time in our history where we have a convicted felon, sexually abuser, on the ballot. Why he's walking free, I don't even know. But here we are. We find ourselves in an assault on everything we never thought we would be here. What I've been saying since 2015, 2016, the minute he came down the golden escalator, was that even the founders could not anticipate somebody who was this willing to blow everything up, somebody who was this willing to completely obliterate all of the beautiful things about being alive, which I listed earlier: loving thy
Right.
neighbor and
Mhm.
self-sacrifice and all these things, just for the sake of his narcissistic, completely never be able to fill up empty soul. And this one man has co-opted um, what should never have been a conversation to begin with. So he has to be um, dealt with summarily, which we're about to do. I'm absolutely convinced of that, and sent away to the fringes of society, where there's a sign above the door: "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here," because that's where he will be going very shortly.
That's what we want to see. And I wish Hellboy could have arrested him and put him in prison by now. It would have moved more swiftly. When you make a point that I make on my show all the time. How was it that 4 years after Trump's attempted coup, almost 4 years after his January 6th terrorist attack, the guy walks free? In what first world nation would this happen? I don't think anywhere. He would be in a prison somewhere. He could, in certain countries, not even be alive at this point, to be blunt, but at least be in prison somewhere. And I can't believe this is the United States of America. And the guy attempts a coup, cites an attack. He pledges to pardon the terrorists. and he's Republican nominee, and he could win. He's not going to win, but he's walking free.
Well, what's even more confusing to me is that even with all of the beautiful um, um, uh, uh, assumptions that the First Amendment gives us, you still cannot yell fire in a crowded movie theater.
Right.
You cannot incite people to chaos. And why he's still walking around free when we've seen him and his actions end up people killed, end up hammers being hit over the head of the husband of the Speaker of the House. This was the direct result of all of his provocation. He has provoked violence repeatedly in every turn, in every moment of his emergence onto the public scene. On that alone, I don't understand why he's still allowed to walk free. And I don't understand why he's been indicted on 34 counts, and somehow some judge who turned out to be a pretty decent judge when we watched him, maneuver his way through the trial, still says, you know what, we're not going to sentence him until after the election because that would be inconvenient. Inconvenient. You know what's inconvenient? Fascism. That's inconvenient. That's not what we are.
Fascism is inconvenient. Ron, in Instagram video you made recently, you said you were obsessed with finding out how we got here as a nation. It's a question I have too. It's a question that many people come on this show and we talk about this, and they'll be giving answers, and then they'll step back for a second and say, I can't believe we're here. And that's the sense. So have you figured out? You're obsessed the same way I am. How are we here? How is it so many of our fellow Americans from different walks of life, from the wealthy titans on Wall Street and Elon Musk to people who are struggling to make ends meet, look at Donald Trump and go, I don't care, or I love what I'm seeing, whatever it might be, and support this guy?
I think what breaks my heart is not the fact of it, because it's I have my own theory about how we got here, but the numbers of people, like they're saying he's going to get 80 million votes this cycle. Luckily, she's going to get 87 or 88, but it's the scope of dissatisfaction, of dis-ease, of feeling like the world has left them behind, so that you get a mouthpiece like Trump, who's all bluster, but who is sort of encapsulating how, all of the things you want to do when you absolutely need a scapegoat. You need a scapegoat when you've been passed by corporate America. I feel like the whole thing basically lays at the feet of corporate America, but that's a whole separate discussion, and that's not part of this election cycle. We're going to have to deal with that separately. But the ability for the average human being to not have to go and get a tech degree in order to raise his children and retire with dignity, that is no longer a thing, because corporate America has co-opted any opportunity for mom and pop, small business, etc. Anytime you do anything that's successful, some corporation will come up and buy you, and then completely dehumanize everything about what it was you were doing. So that's going to have a result, and that's how come we end up here. But the fact that there's 80 million people that are feeling this way is beyond my conception. It's beyond anything I can believe, and this makes me cry, Dean. It makes me cry that the scope of it, of this dissatisfaction and what we're willing to blow up in the name of it, how grandiose it is, and how big it is, and how much we've had to deal with this election in the way we have, because it's as close as it is. It shouldn't be this close. It should be a small fringe of society. But when you see this many people in society who are willing to vote for a guy who's basically to the right of Hitler, and and don't understand the history of this country, and how we don't elect people like that. We defeat people like that. But if the fact that it's this close and the fact that we've had to work this hard on this election is what truly, truly breaks my heart. And I don't understand it, but I feel like if we don't start getting at that, then we're going to be revisited by this over and over again.
And look, I agree with you. There are some people who have been left behind. They've worked really hard and they feel like things have not worked out. And Donald Trump is promises to tear the system down, to change the system, or he's going to own the libs, whatever it might be. But at the same time, Ron, there are Elon Musks, there are Wall Street billionaires who they're doing great. They're living their life and they're giving him money. I mean, Musk is giving over $100 million for the super PAC now. We know that. Where do they come into this big picture from your point of view?
Well, that's the corporate America I was referring to. You know, that's the guys who make everybody feel powerless and left behind because they're watching people buy justice. They're watching people buy power. People who don't deserve, people who don't reflect the American tradition, the rule of law, etc. The reason why Elon Musk and all of the captains of industry out there are the way they are is because they're arrogant enough to say nobody regulates me.
Right.
And in an ordered society, you know, we have to assume that people who got that rich didn't always do it, you know, in a savory, you know, lawful manner. So of course we have to regulate you because you're willing to throw the entire earth under the bus. You're willing to decimate the climate. You're willing to do anything in order to continue to feel like no one questions me because I'm all powerful and I'm the richest. Can you curse on your show?
It's SiriusXM. You have to curse.
Well, came to the right place.
As you did.
But you was literally the richest motherfucker on earth, and nobody tells you what to do. That's that can only lead to little guys feeling completely like, well, you know, if he gets away with it, where am I in all of this? And then suddenly, you know, a president calls you to arms, and you show up with guns at the Capitol on January 6th, ready to fight for your president, because you've completely lost the plot. All of your information is being given to you by guys who refuse to be regulated, who refuse to, you know, be part of an ordered society where we actually every once in a while have to take into consideration the greater good, not just your good, motherfucker, because your good has not proven to be good for a society, for the earth in general, and for the common man who's just trying to raise his kids and retire with dignity, man. That's the disparity.
I agree. And your point about corporations and big money is something that I've been reading about more to talk about after this election's over and looking at the Gilded Age and what were the reforms after that to get away from the robber barons and the power that people had like Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and JP Morgan and others, because we are in that age where these guys are just, they legally can give $100 million to a campaign. It used to have to be bribery in a bag or in stock certificates to a railroad. Now it's, here's $100 million. So, well, what do you think is going to happen? You believe Vice President Harris is going to win? I do too. I think it's going to be very, very close. I think at the end of the day, women save our nation with the male allies. What do you think Trump does, though, on election night? Do you think he declares himself the victor? Do you think he just continues talking fraud and tries to lead to another January 6th? How do you think this ends with him?
Who gives a fuck? He's headed to a very bad, dark place, bro. And however that plays out, we've seen this movie before. Who gives a fuck what he does? He's so tiny. He's so small. He doesn't deserve any of the oxygen we've given him for the last 10 years. And he's about to go away, finally. And so who gives a fuck what he does and how much noise he makes and how many fucking lawsuits he decides to try to bring? And, you know, the thing that worries me the most is the stuff that's been put in place in his name, like the Supreme Court, which we know is just unsustainable. The voters are about to rebuke the Supreme Court in a major way. So. But what they have done in terms of truly creating a cynical kind of an environment for those of us who are law abiding and who do live by the golden rule and who do live according to the precepts and the teachings of Jesus, for this Supreme Court to do the things that they've done, anticipating that he's going to be their motherfucker, dude. You talk about a reckoning that's about to happen. These guys are unsustainable, what they've done. And we're about to show them in a small way on Tuesday how unsustainable it is. But I think that all of the things that are unsustainable are about to be dealt with handily. And I have nothing but hope. I have nothing but good vibes. I don't think it's going to be close, Dean. And this is where you and I maybe part ways.
I don't know.
I think that when you look at the people who have come off the sidelines, just the way they did for Obama, people who never voted before, who are voting for Harris, young people, I think that this is the first time we're going to see women vote since the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You're going to see people come out in numbers that these polls cannot anticipate.
Right.
None of those numbers are baked into any of these polls. And I'm looking for a tsunami on Tuesday. But I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
I want to see that. Who, in the movie you were in, Nightmare Alley, there was the character, the geek. Who is more likely ends up as a geek, Donald Trump or Elon Musk? Like just broken and.
Well, Elon is a real billionaire. So
right.
Donald is a TV billionaire. I mean, he's the guy who's like completely and utterly talentless and full of shit. Who managed to capture some sort of thing in our zeitgeist that, if anything, has been he's done us a favor, because we realize, holy shit, there are some structural problems here that lead to this type of movement that we need to, if we don't get them in hand and we don't deal with them, and we don't address the poor people who are looking to him to solve all their problems. If we don't address those people, this is going to continue to happen over and over again. And I for one, that's what breaks my heart. So there you go.
It's interesting when I've said a similar thing on the show. To me, the greatest crime of Trump is misleading otherwise good Americans who were patriotic. Some are veterans. They've served in our military. They've risked their lives for our country. And now they believe in him over the Constitution and over our way of life. And but they still think they're patriots. That's the worst part. We look at them and go, you put Trump over everything. And they'll say, no. Trump and the United States Constitution and our flag and every image of America in their mind, Donald Trump still matches that. And he's the opposite. I don't know how he's fooled these people. That's, I guess, a con man. That's how they do it, right? He just is doing it on a national level because of mass media and fame helped him. His celebrity status helped him.
We have to be grateful that he's as stupid as he is, because if you can imagine somebody who is as deleterious and as fascistic and truly dire, who doesn't tell you what he's about to do at every turn. The good thing about Trump is that he's actually, shown us Project 2025 before they had a chance to implement it. He's actually shown us that he's going to be a dictator on day one before anybody's had a chance to, So he's given us the keys to the kingdom. He's saying, well, we know what it is we're fighting. But can you imagine if somebody comes along with the same sort of wiring as him, but who's smart enough to keep his mouth shut and co-opts the entire country and rises to the presidency, and then we find ourselves, the country of Turkey or Hungary,
right?
Which is led by his heroes, Erdogan and that other
Orban and Erdogan, yeah, Viktor Orban, and Putin, of course. I mean, his dream. I just interviewed Christopher Steele, the Steele dossier guy who was in the British intelligence. He wrote a new book, and we were talking, and he says that really, when he looks at Trump, even if Trump doesn't get it instinctively, he wants America to be a Putin-esque oligarchy. And that's what the oligarchs see in him too. They understand it, even if he doesn't get it. Musk understands it. Timothy Mellon, another billionaire, giving him tons of money. Some of the Wall Street guys, where it's truly just transactional, where they're actually going to set the policy in the room with him. through executive order, through whatever, if they control Congress. And then if anyone stands up to him, he'll use the apparatus of government to punish those companies and those oligarchs the same way Putin did. And it's cut from the same cloth. And so, I mean, it's interesting that someone like Christopher Steele doesn't go through it in an intellectual exercise. It's more instinctual. He sees him and he knows exactly, as a former MI6 agent stationed in the Soviet Union for a long time and then Russia, exactly what Trump is. Because that's who the
Mm,
guy is. He doesn't read a book. He doesn't have to. That's just who he is
mm,
instinctively. So
mm.
it's kind of interesting where we are. I'm chatting with our friend Ron Perlman. So Ron, what do you think about Vice President Harris's campaign? She's only been a candidate literally for like 102 days now. It seems like longer, but that's literally, it's like 100 days at the big speech at the Ellipse, 102 days. What do you think of the campaign?
Pitch perfect. Pitch perfect. The choice, starting with the choice of Tim Walz coming out, and the very first phrase I remember her uttering within 48 hours of her emergence was the people who she put in jail as a prosecutor, felons, rapists, con men, people who game the system. And she says, I know his type.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, she had his number like no one else has. I mean, we watched him obliterate Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz and fat guy from New Jersey, whatever the fuck his name
Chris
was.
Christie. Chris
Chris
Christie.
Christie had a brain enough. He knew how to fight Trump, and even he ended up like looking like roadkill. Fucking Kamala Harris, she's the first one that has put this guy in his place to the point where he's so fucking terrified. He canceled all of his press. He canceled all of his debates. He is terrified of her because she has his number. And she has the parts of her campaign that I love the most is when she goes off script, because you watch who she really is and how she responds in real time to questions,
Right.
to things that are thrown at her. She's had a lot of hecklers at some of her rallies, and the way she summarily deals with these people, she is smooth, she is tough, she is no nonsense, she is fucking brilliant. But the best thing is she has a heart and a soul, and she's my girl. I mean, she is my girl. I mean, and we're watching that extra gear that very, very few politicians get to have. Obama was, since Kennedy, that extra charisma thing that TV cameras love and that crowds love, and that gets people off the sidelines. She has that as well, which is the reason why I don't even think it's going to be close on Tuesday.
It's interesting. I agree with you because Obama's actually, he's gotten stronger. When you watch him speak now, he's better than ever. And she grows each time I see her, each rally. From the first rally I remember in Georgia, she did, where she was good, to now the ease and comfort level in front of 15,000 people, like she's been doing it all her life, when she's literally been the candidate for 102 days and never spoke before crowds of that size with any regularity at all, maybe here or there. But now, what'd you think of the massive rally at the Ellipse? 75,000 people just crushing Donald Trump's crowd, and no one stormed the Capitol. Can you believe that? Everyone was happy.
Yeah, well, there you go. 75,000 people. First, they were saying it's going to be 20,000. Then they said, no, it's looking more like 30, then 40, and it ended up 75. I rest my case, bro. You don't, you're not part of a political campaign at that point. You're part of a movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you're part of a movement that happens to take place at the intersection of a very corrupt, very right-leaning, very obviously a theocratic Supreme Court, who so far nobody has been able to push back on. And she says this line every once in a while where people kind of yell at her at rallies, "What are we going to do about the Supreme Court?" And she says very wisely, "Let's just win the election."
Yeah.
Meaning, once we have the power, then we'll see what we do about that. But we know that she's going to do something about that, and something has to be done about that, because the guys who are holding sway, these career justices, They may as well be Iranian. They may as well be mullahs because
Right.
they've been completely co-opted by whatever kind of theocracy
Mhm.
that they deal with, and they're trying to bang all of us over the heads. You and I are not, we don't fall into that kind of, white Christian kind of, identity
Nationalism? No.
that they assume that this is the best for all of us. So all of our rulings are going to reflect that instead of, holding up the precepts of the Constitution. And they all motherfucking lied when they came before the Senate to be
Hmm.
confirmed to get their jobs. It's unsustainable, bro. And to me, like my besides you, Dean, my other favorite dude is Ari Melber, who has
Ari's
this
a good guy.
he has this fallback thing.
Hmm.
Supreme Court is going to fall back, bro. Watch me.
I hope so.
Read my lips.
To your point about this Christian nationalist Supreme Court, religious fundamentalists, I call them religious fascists. The Taliban should sue them for trademark infringement. Like, that's our move. We turned the religion into law. How dare you? We'll see you
Yeah.
in court. So, last thing here. What is your closing message? People are already voting now through Tuesday. It's the last of the voting. It is going. I hope it's not going to be close like you're saying. I want it to be what you're saying. What is your closing message, Ron, to people who are listening about getting out if they're sitting on their couch and they're not sure if they're going to vote for whatever reason?
I don't know how to get to them. I mean, if they're at this point right now and they still don't know and they're still on the fence, or they're saying I'm going to sit this one out because it doesn't matter, I don't think they're reachable personally, and so I don't have a closing message for them. I just want to thank um, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for their closing message, because they have been the best surrogates for the Harris campaign that you can possibly get. To have a Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden 1 week before the election, and to have a comedian come out there who, now Trump is saying, I don't know the guy. What comedian? Like, which is what he always does. He's such a
Hmm.
fucking pussy, man. He sends him out there and then he denies he knows him. He's a fucking pussy. He's a fucking coward. And we're getting to see that. That's his closing message, as opposed to, the other side's closing message, which is about generosity and the American way. And so that's how I feel right now. I feel like the best surrogate for the Harris campaign has been Trump and Vance. And I
I,
thank you very much for being the idiots you are to show us your diabolical playlist.
I agree with you. Ron, when this election's over and we win, I want you to come back on. We'll talk more about that corporate thing and about how, and the bigger picture, reaching some of these people who have lost their way, not the true MAGA people, the ones around the edges who really they feel like the system's rigged against them and somehow Donald Trump is their savior. Because I think income inequality, the rise of the oligarchs that we're seeing right now is the next corrosive cancer for our nation. And we got to deal with that. So it's
Well, I can't wait to come back on after this is all over, because I'm working on something that I can't talk about quite yet,
okay.
because it requires a huge groundswell of capital and commitment. But I have my idea about how to start chipping away at that problem,
That's great.
and I would love to come and make news on your show
Sure.
after all this dust settles.
Sure. All right. Ron, great seeing you, my friend. Thanks so much for being on now in the closing days of the campaign. I look forward to seeing you, and check out Ron's stuff on Instagram. It's Pearl Mutations. Is that the right way?
Pearl mutations, yes.
Pearl Mutations. Check it out on Instagram. Thanks, Ron. Have a great day, my friend.
Thanks for your friendship, Dean. Good
Thanks.
luck,
You too.
baby.